Hello everybody and welcome to another deck profile. This time I'm bringing you guys some Mayakashi. The cards have just been released on YGO Pro and I decided to put a deck together. Now I'm pretty happy with my current list, but I'm not happy about, well, I'm not necessarily not happy, but I'm just a little bit disappointed, but also very hopeful of what Mayakashi's can bring to the table. So I'm just going to take a nice little sip of water because it's like the third time I tried to record this. And I just want to talk about Mayakashis for the most part. This is going to be more of a discussion video more than a deck profile, but I'll still title it deck profile just because, like, you get to see the deck on paper, what the cards look like, and my ratios and stuff, so feel free to make changes to the deck according to your playstyle. And then before I go into deck profile, just two little things. First, feel free to, at the end of the video, if you didn't enjoy the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, as it shows that you like what I'm doing and you want to support my channel. And the second thing is, because I'm just going to be talking about what's going to be happening on screen, feel free to tab out of the video and listen to it like a podcast, because I'm just going to be talking about some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I'm just going to go straight into the Mayakashi deck as a whole. So, the first thing that I like about the Mayakashi is how powerful their main deck monsters are. Despite having low levels, they have really powerful effects, which I don't think are even, well, some of them are once per turn, but some of them are not once per turn. What I also really like about them is how they are started. So things like Harjun is, I'm just going to refer to them as the last thing, because like they're all like something Mayakashi, and then like they have their name. So like Harjun is really good because it's a level 1 zombie that can be tutored out with 1/1, so essentially we are playing 4 copies of it, and 1/1 is a really good card. Daki is phenomenal. Like, this card is so good because it just helps you synchro climb so easy, and it's very crucial to this particular type of deck, where you basically want to synchro climb for as little investment as possible, and Daki allows you to do that. Shafu is also really good, not only in the early game but also in the mid to late game, because being able to special summon out a Mayakashi from the graveyard not only does it trigger its effect, but puts you at a huge advantage. And then you have something like Yasha. Yasha is not bad. It's definitely an okay starter. It's pretty beefy, but I don't think its effect is something to be too happy about. And then finally, the one that I'm like the least excited about is Tsukagi. He's okay, like he can special summon himself, and he's a level 3 tuner with 0 attack but 2000 defense, so it can help you give a little bit of defense. It basically gives the deck a little bit of defense on the, you know, if your opponent, it stops your opponent from OTKing you, so yeah. Now, my problem with the deck is just how, how I don't want to say badly designed, because, like, you know, the deck revolves, like, the whole theme of the deck is the yokai and stuff, and I think they can only be like one yokai at a time or something. So essentially, like, you can only control like one of the synchros, and then they basically, like, when they are destroyed, they bring out the successor or like the next one. So that's pretty interesting in that regard. But the fact that, like, you can have multiple of these, and they can only, like, they, like, a specific level has to be destroyed for a specific one to be brought out, also makes it really like sucky. I just wish, like, if any of them were to be destroyed, I could just, like, bring out Yoko and then, like, pop a card on my opponent's side of the field, but instead it has to be level 11, meaning I have to control a Gashadokuro, and then only when Gashadokuro is destroyed I can bring out Yoko. That's my main problem with the deck, but I don't think that's a bad thing, so to say, because their effects, like, when they are special summoned from the graveyard, this can be by any way, they still get, like, they still have really good effects. This pops a card, it destroys the back row, mills 3, and you can make this monster being, this is probably the worst one, because it makes it so that the monster cannot be destroyed by battle, but it helps you stall for that battle phase or something. But yeah, the monster, well, not monster, but just the monster destruction card and the spawn trap card destruction card are really good. It just sucks that, like, they have to be, like, something else has to be destroyed, like the specific level, for them to be brought out. So yeah, now what I did want to include in this deck was as many good engines as possible, because I want to minimize the amount of bad cards that I have to play in the deck. And I'm looking at you, Yasha. I don't think you're very good, but I'm still playing it just because it's a brand new deck. I want to try every single card, see how they work, and what's good and bad about them, and then later on refine the list, which is what I'm going to do. This is my initial deck profile, and then I'm going to upload like 2 or 3 more profiles that I have ready. I just wanted to bring this out particularly because it just dropped, like, on YGO Pro. I've been waiting for these cards for the past like 2 days. But eventually, when I have a list, a refined list, I'll probably revisit the deck. So Now, the engine that I wanted to play was the Spirit King engine. This basically is the Spirit King, Banshee, and Zombie World. Really, really good engine. Gives the deck a lot of defense and offense because you can negate zombie monster effects, and all monsters on the field will be zombies because of Zombie World, but also you can banish one monster from the field or graveyard. So if your opponent brings out something like, let's say ABC, Buster Dragon, if your opponent brings out Buster Dragon with Spirit King, you can immediately banish it and they just lost a bunch of resources. I also wanted to include the Mizuki Gozuki engine because it's just a really, really solid zombie engine. There's really no reason not to play this engine because it's just so good. And then the Shiranui engine is also particularly good as not only as a starter engine with Solitaire, but also an extension engine with Spectral Sword. And they just have some really, really good artwork, which pairs up with fantastically well with the Maikashis, which also have really, really good artwork. I mean, on the plus side, because everybody's excited about Prank Kids and Nephthys, if this deck gets left behind, at least this will be a really cheap deck. So yeah, I'm pretty okay with that. And then I think that's well, and then I have the Unizombie, but I don't think Unizombie can be called an engine. It's more of like a card on its own that's just really, really good. And because because Unizombie is a level 3 that can either be a level 4 or a level 5. Being level 5 is really, really good because it adds to this like idea of odd synchros in terms of like levels, so odd level synchros. And if Unizombie is a 5, we can immediately bring out something like Tengu with, let's say, any level. So this we'll have any level 2, or just like the idea, or just manipulate levels at our free will anyway. So, and then I also wanted to include 2 copies of Zombie Necronize because this card is really, really good. It's essentially a change of half a zombie monster that also allows us to set itself, so we can use it once more by shuffling a zombie we control that is banished. So that's really, really good to recycle your Mizukis and any of your banished zombie cards. And then the Burial from a Different Dimension, this card is also really good because, again, putting our Mizukis back into the graveyard to bring out our Synchros can give us some huge pluses and just comeback ability for the deck, which I think is something that the deck does not like. The deck is able to basically come back from a disadvantaged state fairly easily because it's a zombie deck. It's just the problem is like establishing your board and what kind of board you want to establish. I think that's the problem that the deck has, because this thing is not a good boss monster, this thing is not a good boss monster, like pretty much none of my extra deck are good boss monsters. My only good boss monster is Spirit King, and what I might do is make a whole deck around Spirit King because I think this is probably my favorite zombie card this year. I think this card is just amazing, so I think I will bump this card up to 2, and then probably like make a whole deck around it using the Maikashis as a core theme. So yeah, now my spell lineup is also pretty good. I think what makes me really like the deck is the fact that we have a rotor for the deck, and that's just really, really good. So we are playing extra copies of Hajun, but what I think the deck definitely needs is something like Call by the Grave to give the deck a little bit of like something to rely on if in case they get hand trapped. I don't think I want to play hand traps. I want to play something that prevents me from getting hand trapped. So I might toy around with ratios a little bit just to include Call by the Grave. So I think I'm just gonna go through the deck list card by card because I already gave my 2 cents on the deck itself. I think the deck is really, really cool. I just think the deck needs a game plan and like a main strategy, because the deck right now just seems like, oh, you can do this, and like you don't really get any benefits off. It's just like things that can randomly happen, or you know, if it happens. I think the main idea behind the deck is like it punishes your opponent for dealing with your cards, which isn't the best strategy, but it's at least something to go off of. So I'm just going to go through the deck card by card and give you my reasons for playing each card at whatever ratio I'm playing it at. So one Spirit King, you don't really need multiple copies of this card because it can bring itself back from the graveyard every single standby phase if you control a field spell. This can be any field spell, but for the most part you want to have Zombie World. Now I'm only playing 2 copies of Zombie World because I'm playing the Otherworldly Banshee, which technically counts as a Zombie World because she can banish this card from the field or graveyard to then activate a Zombie World, which is really, really good since it can dodge things like ogres and like torrential tributes and all these other nonsense cards. So Otherworldly Banshee can basically, it's sort of like Lilith, it can dodge a lot of stuff to immediately get you a copy of Zombie World. It also protects the Zombie World, so if you feel like you really, really want to protect the Zombie World, then feel free to play more copies of Otherworldly Banshee, but I'm pretty okay with just the one copy. So back to Spirit King, card is phenomenal. When a zombie monster effect is activated, you can negate the effect or just banish one monster on the field. So the negation, it only accounts on a zombie, so you can only negate a zombie effect, which is really bad if you don't have zombie world. But if you have the zombie world, you can basically negate a monster effect on the field. But when a monster effect activates its effect, so let's say like one of your Mayakashi monsters are brought back from the graveyard, you can banish a monster on the field. So that's something that the deck really needs, and I'm really excited to play the Spirit King in the deck. Then we have Yasha. I'm not the biggest fan of this card, but it's good because the card can special summon itself out on the field for free, and it's a level 5, meaning it's odd. So with any like odd tuner, we can basically go into our extra deck Mayakashi monsters. But the really interesting thing about the card is that the card can special summon itself by discarding another Mayakashi monster, but it's really bad. There has to be a Mayakashi monster, and in my opinion, the only Mayakashi monster you would want to discard would be something like Daki, and even then, I would much rather save my Daki to bring it out of Hajun. So, yeah, that's pretty much my philosophy behind this card. Although the Banshee already talked about this card, phenomenal card. I don't think you need more than one, at least in an engine form. Golzuki is really good. Like, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can basically banish something from the graveyard and then sort of like unbreak yourself. So I think that card is only, like, that effect is only good like when you break, but the ability to basically like Foolish Burial something during your main phase is really neat, especially because it's not an on-summon effect, it's just like during your main phase, so even if this guy's like special summon, you can activate its effect. So I really like the one Golzuki. 3 copies of Mizuki, one of the best like zombie cards, not much more to be said. Like, you're gonna be wanting to recycle Mizuki as much as possible and using these effects as much as possible to get as much as advantage as possible. 1 copy of Spirit Master, because when it's banished, we can basically pop a card our opponent controls, even though it targets, it's still a destruction effect that can force something out of our opponent's field. 3 copies of Solitaire, because Solitaire not only is it able to throw out the copy of Daki, but also the copy of Unizombie, the 2 copies of Unizombie, or even the Spirit Master if we ever feel like we need to. And just a really solid Shiranui card in general. And when the card is banished, we can essentially special summon like our Spirit Master and Spectral Soul that are banished like at best. So that's like the best case scenario. We banish this and then special summon these 2 cards and try to get as much advantage as possible. 2 copies of Unizombie, I don't really agree with playing 3 copies of it. Like, you don't really ever feel like you need 3 copies of. The card is very niche in this particular deck because, like, you want to manipulate its levels here more than ever. Previously, you just basically try to get this card to like level 4 and then maybe go for like an Omega or something, but here you have to be very careful with what you change Unizombie's level to. So I'm a little bit on the side that, yeah, you only need 2. 3 copies of Shafu. Initially, I was only playing 2 copies of this card, but then I realized how important this card is to the strategy of the Mayakashi deck as a whole. So I think 3 copies is very needed to essentially gives us access to our synchro monsters from the graveyard, or even our copy of Hajun. Hajun is probably like the most important Mayakashi deck, just because like on summon we can throw out any Mayakashi from the deck, and anything that summons from the deck historically tends to be really good. So I'm playing the copy of Shafu. And then one Daki, I really want to play this card at 2, and what I might do is cut the copy of Yasha and play this at 2, because this is just a superior card in every level. This card is basically how you're going to synchro climb with just like 1 card. So let's say you open up Hajun, so you normal summon Hajun, use this effect to bring out Daki, synchro into 3, and then Daki effect will activate because it's in the graveyard, and you special summon Mayakashi, special summon itself, synchro into 5, Daki effect, synchro into 7, Daki effect, synchro summon into 9, Daki effect, synchro summon into 11, and you just cycle through all of your Mayakashi so they're all in the graveyard ready to be tutored out for your specific situation. And then just, you know, this card is just phenomenal. And the fact that you can even bring it out with Solitaire makes this card even crazier. So I really like this copy of, I really like the Daki. And then Spectral Slot, I mean, I'm just playing this card for flavor. The card is really good, but in the deck that utilizes odd synchros more than even, it makes the card really hard to mess around with. Now, The good thing about the card is that you can use this effect to like synchro summon in a graveyard. So trying to get to your Shogun Saga in the graveyard is not the hardest thing, since like you can banish like 2 copies of Harjun with the 1 strike control, that's 4, and then like any level 4 zombie, that's 8. There you go, you have access to Shogun Saga. And I mean, you're only playing the 1 Spectral Sword for these type of scenarios anyway, so I'm more than happy to just play the 1 copy of it. Also just has like, for me, it's just the best Shiranui artwork. So yeah. 1 copy of Tsukahagi. Basically, when your Mayakashi monster is destroyed by battle on opponent's card effect, you can bring this card from the graveyard, and then that's pretty much it. It just sits there, and it's a level 2 tuner, so you can probably like synchro climb on your next turn, since it cannot be destroyed by battle. Well, no, it can be destroyed by battle. It's brought out. It just has really good defense, so yeah. And then 3 copies of Harjun, the most important Mayakashi monster. Like I said, just tutors out any Mayakashi monster from the deck. Not much more to be said, just phenomenal, and you're even playing the 1-for-1 to help you get access to this card even more. 2 copies of Book of Life, our Monster Reborn for zombie monsters. I could go with World Legacy Succession, but I think this is a little bit more generic and more useful. So I decided to go with 2 copies of it. And then, I mean, if we didn't have Monster Reborn, I'd probably play 3 copies of it, but because we have access to Monster Reborn, I'm just happy with 2. And then we also have the Monster Reborn, just bring out anything that we want from the graveyard. Pretty sucky card. I really, really like. I'm so glad Monster Reborn is back. Foolish Burial. You're playing a zombie deck. This is just like one of the this is probably like the best card in your deck. Soul Charge, a really good win card. I don't usually play Soul Charge in a whole lot of decks, but I think this deck really, really needs it, just because like the deck has good effects, like when your monsters are summoned from the graveyard, since they don't get negated by Soul Charge. So essentially, like the more Mayakashis you bring out, the more effects you're gonna get off. So you know, potentially getting a mill, popping a back row, and popping a monster can be really, really good. So I'm playing the 1 Soul Charge. And then I'm also playing the 2 copies of Zombie Necronize. I really, really like this card. This card is so good. Like, taking control of your opponent's monsters, even if it's until the end phase, the fact that you can still attack with them is really, really good. And then the ability to like reset the card from the graveyard by shuffling as a banished zombie monster, make this card like so worth running, in my opinion. I think 2 is more than fine, because technically you're playing 4 copies of it, which is like a lot more than you're ever going to resolve in a game, especially in current Yu-Gi-Oh! But in a slow-paced game, this card is devastating. 3 copies of Mayakashi Revolt, just the best Mayakashi card. Just being able to search anything that we want, to either not only search it, but also like foolish it, makes this card like really, really appealing. Even though it's a hard one to turn, it doesn't matter. The card is really good either way. 2 copies of Borrowed from a Different Dimension, to just like recycle any zombies in the banished zone for the most part. 2 copies of Zombie World. Technically 3 with Banshee, but you know, less breaky, so I'm pretty happy with the 2 copies of Zombie World, and then 3 copies of Return of the Mayakashi. I prefer this over something like Call of the Haunted. The discard can be a little bit like costly, because like we have to discard a card, so it's not always live. But the fact that we can target a Mayakashi that is banished or in the graveyard and then special summon it, and then it cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects this turn, makes this card really, really good. At least worth running, in my opinion, because like you're gonna be banishing stuff with the Mayakashis, and then like this can summon stuff that is banished. It just adds a little bit of utility, like it adds a lot of utility to the deck. Now, the key thing to notice is that most of the Mayakashi monsters only activate when they are special summoned from the graveyard. So if you special summon something that is banished, you might not get its effect. But if you special summon something like a Mayakashi monster, let's say Harjun, you can get its effect, and its effect is pretty good. So that's one way to essentially like use the card. I would say like use this to summon Mayakashis that are main deck Mayakashis that are banished instead of the extra deck ones. For the rest of the extra deck, the extra deck is pretty simple. Like you're gonna be playing like a whole lot of Mayakashi monsters, and then like a few utility monsters in case like you just need them for that specific situation. So 1 Gashudokuro, if it's special summoned from the graveyard, it's unaffected by card effects. And pretty much all of them have the same effect, where you can only control 1 of each of the Mayakashi monsters. So like you can only control 1 Gashudokuro, you can only control 1 Yoko, etc, etc. And then they can also like when something is destroyed, they can bring themselves from the graveyard. So this is like, if a Link monster is destroyed, you can bring this. If this is level 11, level 9, level 7, and then level 5. So yeah, 1 Gashidokuro, 2 Yoko. Yoko is probably my favorite one in terms of artwork and just effect. 1 Shogun Saga, just because like it's really, really easy to bring out for the most part and pretty good at helping you close games. 2 Tengu, 2 Tsushigumo, and then 2 Oborogoroma. I think that's how you pronounce it. Orobogoroma. Anyway. And then we have some Linky boys. We have Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn. And then 2 zombie extract monsters. 1 Sucker and 1 Icicle Mayakashi Yukiona. Vampire Saga is just here because it's like really, really generic, because it's just 2 zombie monsters. And Yukiona is like the Mayakashi Link monster. I wish it just had a little bit of a better effect, but it's still like not bad. Now, my side deck is just basically cards that you can look at and, you know, figure out, okay, you could probably implement this one way or the other. So, Zombie Master is really good when you have Zombie World on the field, because you can even special summon level 4 or lower monsters in your opponent's graveyard. Samurai Skull is like Gozuki, but I think it's a little bit less good. Although it special summons zombies from the deck, it's not as good because like Gozuki can special summon anything from the hand, whereas this can only special summon level 4 or lower from the deck. Goblin Zombie is really, really good, like in a deck that utilizes a lot of like Link monsters. Like basically this card is used in Link zombies, like extra deck, not Nightmare Zombies, that's where the card is used in a lot. But here it's pretty mediocre, but you can still probably like play 1 copy of it. Beast of the Pharaoh, this card is really, really good because it's level 3, meaning it's odd, it's not a tuner, so the card is particularly good with Unizombie and Mizukis and such, and then just special summoning a zombie from the graveyard is also really good. Ash Blossom, it would be the only hand trap that I would consider playing in the deck because it's an odd level zombie tuner. Avendred Engine could possibly work, but then you'd have to play like a bunch of ritual cards, which I'm not against, but I don't think like you really want to. I think the 3 engines that I included are a little bit better than the Avendred like deck. Cop at the Grave is also like a pretty good card. At least you should play this in the side deck if your opponent is playing a hand trap heavy deck. Shunui style Swallow Slash is really, really good because just popping 2 cards is really good. So if you bring out a Tsukahagi and then like you you use a Shunui style on it and then like pop 2 cards on the field, that's a pretty good plus in my opinion. And then also call it a Haunted if you want to play. And then like for the rest of the deck, the extra deck, I mean side deck even, just play like generic good side deck cards that are played in this being played this current format. So Evilly Matches, Shared Rise, Hand Traps, Sphere Modes, etc. So this has been like a really long video, and I think I'm just gonna close it off here. If you guys did enjoy this video, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.